Hey, it's Colleen.
Hi, it's Kate.
And it's Megan.
And we're the
Three Scheme Queens. Join us as we discuss popular hoaxes and give you our comedic take on what is fact and what is fiction. If you have a sense of humor and an open mind, come take this journey with us.
We'll tell you what we think, and we'll try to prove it to you.
Is this thing on?
Hey, guys.
Hey, guys. Just eating some sourdough over here.
Megan's in her sourdough era, and Kate and I are thriving because of that.
We thought it was going to be me, but it wasn't me. We
Yeah.
should have known, actually.
I think that
Megan really is a follow-througher.
She's a homesteader.
I also think that for someone who doesn't have any like children to be responsible for, I just have like a lot of living
You
things.
do.
I'm like, I wake up and it's like, I gotta deal with the dog. I gotta feed the starter.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta water the plants, you know?
Feed it twice a day.
No, you feed it once. Actually, and now I spaced out.
Wow.
I just kept feeding mine every day. I kept it alive until I went on vacation, and then once I went on vacation, that was it.
You're supposed to put it in the
Also,
fridge when you
I did. I never took it out.
It'll probably still come back alive, to be honest.
She's done. She's moved on.
I threw it all away.
Have you met our friend Kate? You think she just like left something in her fridge just in case at some
I
point?
kept looking at it. I was like, that's gross.
Yeah, you
I
have
throw
to
it away.
remix the black stuff into
Yeah.
it. The ballerina farm kit has been known to not work well.
Oh,
And why'd you get it for me?
I didn't know
fine.
that at the time.
I don't really know
You
why
know what? It's okay because
you're not doing it.
I wasn't
He's not
committed.
doing it. Yeah. Have you made your own nut milk yet?
No, I keep forgetting about that, actually.
Yeah.
I put it away.
I know she can't. If she put it where she can't see it, and if she can't see it, she doesn't use it. Like, I suffer from the same disease.
I don't know why you need a kit. What'd you call it? A sourdough? Like a
She needed the starter. It came with the starter.
Yeah, there's a whole
It
kit
came
that
with
it
a
came.
dehydrated.
You didn't
starter.
make your own starter?
No.
No, it was a dehydrated starter.
Yeah, and she had to reactivate it.
Uh-huh.
Megan, from scratch.
Girl, I'm like,
made their starter.
all you need is a jar, some
Yeast.
flour, and no, you don't need yeast.
You just
That's
need
the whole
flour,
point.
water.
We're making our own
I just know I'm not.
flour,
do it,
water, in a
so
jar. You know,
I just have friends that.
Well, maybe
do
that
it.
was the
and
problem.
some patience, which I think that was the problem.
Well, yeah, but then I was like, it just takes so long. I guess that's the patience part, right?
Yeah.
It's just a whole process. I just want to eat bread when I want bread.
Uh-huh.
I use Mermaid Girl's recipe now.
Just yeast.
It's like,
It's like fake yeast.
yeah.
So is it time for our
Drink check.
Drink check.
So guys, I was looking for a Titanic themed drink.
Megan tried.
They exist. They all have blue curacao, which like always kind of weirds me out.
Yeah.
Or you had to have like an ice shredder, what do you want to talk about? Like an ice
Or like one big ice block.
slushy type thing.
an ice shredder.
Yeah, I couldn't think of the word. Don't worry, crumbles it. So anyway,
An iceberg.
it was all just too much. Like
You could have made
what could I have made?
a bloody jack with iceberg lettuce. Like Bloody Mary
Iceberg lettuce.
with iceberg lettuce.
A Bloody Jack, which first of all, Bloody Mary is made with vodka.
Yeah, but like a bloody jack. Like, Jack, I'll never let go.
Well, instead we're having an investment julep because we're talking
About the Federal Reserve.
about the Federal
Wait,
Reserve.
did you name that yourself?
No, I googled it, but I think it's
Oh.
just a mint julep that someone named.
That's so funny.
Probably
But-
some finance bro that thought it was funny.
That
He's
is
like,
so
it's an
funny.
investment.
All right, Colleen, what are you gonna teach us about
So-
today?
Have you ever thought to yourself, where does our money come from? Do you ever think about banks really hard and just like not understand how they have the money?
Well, I know you two.
Well,
do.
yeah, for sure.
Today, we're going to do
Like if
what
if
Kate
20
always-
families and I went and wanted to pull all of our money out, we would not have that. The banks would not be.
They don't have that much
say.
money on them at hand.
Yeah.
Anyways, we're going to do what we always say we do. Follow the money.
Okay.
In particular, we're following the money behind the drama and the massacre of the Titanic.
Dun dun dun.
We will be answering the infamous question that I actually didn't know about until Kate brought it up one day. Were millionaires purposely killed off in the Titanic crash to thus create the Federal Reserve.
Yes.
I don't know about this, actually.
First of all, you have to believe that the Titanic was deliberately sank.
Yeah, well,
To believe this conspiracy theory,
you have to believe it was purposeful.
You have to believe it's purposeful.
Right.
So if you don't believe it's purposeful,
You don't believe this.
automatically you don't believe it.
Kate, do you believe the Titanic was purposely sunk? Yes or no?
I mean, I don't want to believe that.
But you believe in the conspiracy theory?
I don't want to believe that people would be that heartless
Right.
to
All right.
deliberately sink with all those people on it. However, greedy people are greedy people.
Correct. Okay, Megan, do you think the Titanic was sunk purposefully?
think-
Yes or no?
No, because how many people died on the Titanic?
April 14th, 1912, 1,517 people died
Yeah.
out of 2,223.
I just can't believe.
I honestly, when I think about the Titanic, I think of way more people than that. Not that that's not a lot of people, to be clear, but I just thought
I'm like, those
1,500 people?
I've been on a ship with more people than that.
Right.
Yeah, it's like a third of my high school.
Right. So anyway,
Wow, it's more than
not
that.
that it's not sad, to
But
be fair.
I just can't believe that they would be like, we're gonna kill
All
these
of them.
people.
Greedy people are greedy people.
And so, why were they purposely trying to sink it? Let me answer that question. So, the question of this conspiracy is, did J.P. Morgan deliberately sink the Titanic ship to kill off several millionaires who were in opposition of the Federal Reserve, which was something he was pushing for at the time?
Right.
So, you need to know some background of America at the time. So, there was an incident in 1907 called the Panic of 1907.
Okay.
Were any of you familiar with that?
No.
Because I was not. Essentially, what happened was there was a bank scare. And during this era of America was repeated bank scares, which is essentially what happened in the Great Depression. People would freak out over drop in stock market, pull their money out, America crashes.
Okay.
And like repeatedly over and over again. And this had just happened in 1907. And so JP Morgan, who is an investor, I'm going to get more into the background of JP Morgan, felt to stabilize the financial status of America, we needed a unified, neutral, nationwide bank to thus stabilize finances in America. And that is the Federal Reserve. And so that's what he was pushing for in after the 1907 scare. The conspiracy is saying that many of the other bigger millionaires were arguing against the Federal Reserve and fighting JP Morgan on that. There were 3 people on the Titanic that are allegedly well known for fighting JP Morgan and his fight for the Federal Reserve.
Okay.
John Jacob Astor IV, who was well known in America for his control of properties and real estate. Benjamin Guggenheim, who led mining in America. And Isidor Straus, who owned Macy's, which at the time made him a millionaire. Okay. These were the 3 people that died on the Titanic that were allegedly purposefully planned to die on the Titanic. They didn't know that, but JP Morgan and his supporters allegedly knew that. Okay, that's the conspiracy.
Okay.
It was created on December 23rd, 1913, with something that was called the Federal Reserve Act. This was in response to the Panic of 1907, which revealed weaknesses in the U.S. financial system. Like I said, this was initially thought of by Alexander Hamilton, which I was just going to sing something about the musical there, but I will not. So what is the Federal Reserve, also known as the Fed? It's a central bank of the United States that's responsible for promoting a stable and healthy monetary and financial system in America. So I talked about how we had a repetition of bank scares. Our financial and economic state in America at the time was very fragile and kept having repeated crashes. So we needed something that would support the country financially to prevent crashes. So the Federal Reserve was something they were pushing for. This actually was originally created and thought of and pushed for by Alexander Hamilton, who was the first Secretary of Treasury.
Yeah, I was going to ask how this was different from Alexander Hamilton.
It's not. It's the same thing. It's what he wanted, but was shot down at the time. So, what is the purpose of the Federal Reserve? It's meant to be an independent from politics. It's not supposed to have pressure from the people leading the government in real time. They say it's supposed to promote long-term economic stability without sway by short-term political considerations. So, essentially, the president now is not going to affect what the federal bank is working on, right? Because they don't care about the president now. They care about America in the future.
So what makes the Federal Reserve controversial? So people don't think.
I mean, on paper, it sounds fine.
On paper, it sounds fine. But what makes it controversial? Because people don't like it.
The millionaires run it.
Right.
It's a bank that's supposed to not have political sway, but most definitely has political sway.
100%. Yeah. Basically, the whole reason why people didn't, these guys that were on the Titanic, kind of, you said that they didn't oppose it, but I think the argument against having a Federal Reserve is that it has immense power over the U.S. economy. Because basically what the Federal Reserve does is it sets your interest rates, it like drives, it makes decisions based on people's money. So why does one bank get to do that? And that was the argument against, is that should people really have this much power to drive
Our economy.
Right. Exactly. So that was the opposition when they got on the Titanic, is like, should these millionaires be the ones that are creating this neutral, quote, neutral bank that drives our economy? Because even in the past, I don't know, 4 years, the Federal Reserve, I mean, has increased interest rates. I mean, it drives inflation. So anyway, it's just criticized because of how much power it has. And that's the idea, is that these, couple guys that got on the ship who were opposed to it were saying that these guys should not have that power.
So then let's talk about who is JP Morgan. He is known as the Napoleon of Wall Street, which to me, I would be offended, because is he just small? When I think Napoleon, I think small man energy.
Oh, well, wasn't Napoleon like, he was a
general during the French Revolution.
And like, yeah, I know he was like a really good general, but all I know about him is that he was small. Like, I don't think that's a good nickname.
But Napoleon didn't he like win a lot of wars and territories? Like, wasn't he like, he was really good at his job? Wasn't that like he created a,
which I think is the intention
empire.
of the nickname.
That's the
I'm just thinking of saying it's funny because it's like, I feel like he's more known for being tiny.
I see what you're
Well,
saying. 'Cause
fun fact, he wasn't really that tiny.
Really?
He was
How tiny was he?
He was 5'7"
That's not that small.
and big boned.
Oh, so he had big hips.
No, he just sounds like he was a solid 5'7".
Good for him. So JP Morgan is a private banker. He convened all of the, quote, principal players, end quote, which I think is who you're talking about, Kate. Like Rockefeller, all of the famous people we know as like Carnegie, like the famous millionaires that we know.
Vanderbilts
were his principal players for the push for the Federal Reserve, aka a bunch of rich guys.
Yep.
And immediately following the 1907 bank panic, he had all of these men, it was men at the time, convene at his mansion, and they had a private meeting in their mansion to plan for the group of millionaires to flood the system with their own money to prevent a depression. So JP Morgan and all of these millionaires essentially stopped a depression from occurring in 1907. So that's what really got him. Other than being a well-known private banker, he also, quote, saved America.
in 1907.
In 1907. So he just had a lot of sway. Like, he literally saved America not even, 5 years prior. So I'm sure in his mind, he's like, they should listen to me because I stopped a depression. But there were people fighting him, the 3 men that I listed earlier. But
it's him and like a bunch of the other
The principal players. Yes. Yeah.
So Vanderbilt, and JP Morgan were also supposed to go on the Titanic, and they pulled out at the last minute.
I didn't read anything about Vanderbilt when I was looking up this conspiracy. It only talked about JP Morgan pulling out.
Well, Vanderbilt's part of it too. Vanderbilt was supposed to get on.
George Washington Vanderbilt II and his wife Edith had booked passage on the Titanic, but they changed their plans and sailed on the Olympic instead.
Interesting. Suspicious. You mean the real Titanic?
The real Titanic.
Yeah. So all three men, Astor, Guggenheim, and Straus, had tickets to the Titanic.
Right.
But JP Morgan canceled his allegedly the night before takeoff due to, quote, an illness. Okay?
Okay.
We're going to get into that a little bit
But
more.
isn't JP Morgan wasn't he also part of the Titanic, the group?
So he owned the Titanic. So he didn't own it directly. He owned the International Mercantile Marine, which is kind of like the ship line that owns the Titanic. Well,
The White
it's like
Star Line?
it's like the mothership. So it's like you have the International Mercantile Marine, then branch from that you have the White Star Line.
Yep.
And then branch from that you have the Titanic and the Olympic.
Titanic, Olympic,
he
and then
did
more shit.
essentially
Titanica.
He did essentially own the Titanic, which
Right.
is suspicious.
It's very suspicious.
Especially if you believe in the bait and switch theory too.
Exactly.
But none of us believed in that.
Did I say no at
No.
the end?
Not one of us believed in bait and switch.
Don't even remember. So for JP Morgan's reservation, on the Titanic, he booked a private room with a private promenade deck and personalized cigar holders, which I thought was interesting.
Must be nice to just have money to burn.
Right.
What's
Finance
money?
bros.
Although I will say that when I was in Iceland, we could not figure out the conversion, and so we were just like, could be spending $100 in a candy bar.
Everything sounds
Could be
cheap.
$1, and I was just like, money. What is money?
Yes. So let's talk about why JP Morgan canceling his reservation for the Titanic is not as suspicious as people think it is. First of all, he did not cancel it days before. He canceled it weeks before. Second of all, why did he cancel it? It wasn't due to an illness. It was because he was two different things. He was hooking up with his mistress at a French spa and trying to ship all of his French art out of France back to America. So at the time, France was creating a new law that impacted Americans selling and buying French art. And so he had to get all of his art that he owned out of France before the law went into act.
Okay.
So he needed to go back to France that week. That's why he canceled the Titanic. It wasn't because he knew it was going to crash. It's because he knew he had to get his investment in art out of France.
Sounds like a good cover story.
And we have proof that he had reservations at a French spa, but he booked massages.
The alibi was sick, and also then he's like conveniently has to get all of his art out of France.
Well, conveniently, France was just passing a law that limited it, though. Like, I don't know.
You know what? It's probably a good thing he did
Secretly.
because, it might have ended up in the hands of the Nazis.
Yeah. All of my facts regarding the French art comes from Don Lynch. Do you know who Don Lynch is, Megan? Because he was one of the main historians for the movie. I don't know. He's pretty famous in the Titanic world.
Oh, okay. No, but I was a Titanic girly.
He was the one who cited the facts about the French law changes. So another big reason why this conspiracy is probably false is everybody is like, who wants mass murder?
Yes.
Why would they kill all of those people? And the likelihood of killing the 3 men you intended to kill,
yeah. Well, how many survivors were there? Like 1,000?
not even, yeah,
800?
1,500 out of 2,000 dead. So a little over 500.
Yeah. Well, so that's I guess, pretty good odds that you're going to take the person down. I don't know. That's what I have a hard time. And now there are conspiracy theorists out there who would say that 9/11 was
An inside
an
job.
inside job in which
Yeah.
thousands
Yeah.
of innocent people were murdered. But I like to be positive and believe that no one would be that sociopathic.
Right.
That they would just kill, especially like the women and children who died, you
Right.
know?
Right.
Not that they're any more important than men, but it just like, yeah, you're killing a lot of people, including young children.
Yeah.
And then another aspect was JP owned the Titanic, so why would he crash it? But if you
Well,
believe in the bait and
insurance money.
switch, yeah, you would get the insurance money.
Right.
And then the 3 men he was allegedly targeting, Astor, Guggenheim, and Strauss. Astor and Guggenheim never publicly spoke out against the Federal Reserve. They never spoke pro Federal Reserve, but we don't have any evidence that say
They were
they were anti.
Well, this just feels like a
Strauss-
stretch then.
Strauss did publicly support the Federal Reserve. And one of my resources is like an article where he's interviewed specifically stating how much he's pro the Federal Reserve.
Okay, so that sounds like this is nonsense.
This is random, but another evidence against it was that Guggenheim bought his ticket days before. JP Morgan never knew he was going to be on the ship until days before.
Okay.
So that was another thing.
And the guys that were doing it, so Vanderbilt, who was one of them,
Mm.
who's part of the beginning powers, the Federal Reserve, and JP Morgan, they both backed out of the Titanic, getting on the Titanic, which I think is suspicious. Is it something that just like
Well,
was it serendipity? Did it just happen because and then they suddenly these 2 guys, I'm saying 2 because you said the third one didn't oppose, never came out and opposed.
Well, publicly was pro,
Yeah, so
and the other 2
that
never
were
opposed.
never publicly opposed,
Correct.
but were rumored to have opposed, right? So the 2 guys, that's why I
It's
said
all
2 in the
alleged.
beginning.
Yeah, it's all alleged.
So the 2 guys who are allegedly opposed, they get on the ship and suddenly it's null and void. And now all these guys are able to say like, okay, well, let's do this Federal Reserve.
Right. Well, I think the other issue is that, well, one thing that I find interesting is that they wanted the Federal Reserve to stabilize the economy, and then like not even 10 years later, or not even 20 years later, there was a massive depression,
Right.
an economy crash.
That's what I was trying to get to.
Yeah.
I missed the days. Right. It's like not even in 1920s, the economy crashes.
Right. The first one, right?
Right.
So,
And we have the Great Depression.
but
So
also,
it
how
seems like-
quickly can they build a Federal Reserve and make it function? I think we should give them a little bit of credit there. Like, I don't think 10 years, I guess. I don't know. I don't think it had to do with the Titanic, is all that, like, based on what I've read after researching
I
it.
tend to agree. I tend to agree that I think this is an interesting conspiracy because I think it more like it provokes the thought of like, should a group of millionaires not in a neutral bank,
Correct.
quote, neutral bank, be able to drive the economy? That's the most interesting thing to me about this conspiracy is that, yes, do I think the Titanic sank like deliberately? Probably not.
Right.
Is it serendipity that these 2 guys that opposed the Federal Reserve got on a boat and died and kind of paved the path for a Federal Reserve to be established a year later in the United States?
Yeah, but would those 2 people have really
Made that big of an
made that
impact.
big if they had
They weren't even politicians.
But I think
Like,
they were really
They were.
influential in
You
the
could argue they
banking
were
business.
lobbyists, right?
Mm.
Well, one of them was mining, one of them was real estate, but like they were probably lobbyists who funded politicians. But I don't think 2 would have made. I think it would have passed no matter what.
Well, I just was curious why Vanderbilt backed out because you gave us a good explanation of why JP Morgan backed out.
Right.
And he backed out because his family said, ooh, maiden voyage. That's risky.
Oh, that's
Oh.
more suspicious.
So that
yeah.
no, that just sounds smart.
Yeah.
That's big brain. Mated voyage.
And that's why they went on the Olympic.
Right.
The Olympic was solid,
Right.
maybe, allegedly.
It wasn't the maiden voyage.
There you go.
And arguably, J.P. Morgan owned the Olympic too.
Yeah.
So
But the bait and switch would say that
it was the Titanic.
it was the actual Titanic.
Again, though,
I don't think that it was.
We finished that episode and you guys said, we don't believe this at all. I can't wait
Yeah.
to talk about
And I don't.
Federal Reserve because I do believe that one. And
No, and then I don't believe it at all. Yeah. I mean, like,
I think it's interesting to believe, though. I think it's interesting to think that, like,
So how would they have done it? They just told like the watchmen not
hey,
to
you
do
three go on
anything?
it.
I honestly
Like they knew an
think-
iceberg was going to be there right
And
there.
700 people lived. How'd they know those 3 people weren't going to be part of the 700?
I mean, they didn't have enough lifeboats on the boat.
Mhm.
They never thought that,
And they were
was
not
gonna be
and they were not filling them to capacity. But I mean again, this Titanic. Are you guys alleging that it didn't hit an iceberg and sink?
No, it
No,
definitely
I'm not
didn't.
saying that.
So then, how did they strategically hit an iceberg?
Isn't it weird? Like, isn't where they hit the iceberg like a weird place to?
Well, I think what it was weird about it is that they tried to turn. And so when they tried to turn, it like scraped the side. And so if
Right.
they had just hit it head on, it wouldn't have sunk. But
They just would have been stalled.
well, because they had those, didn't you watch the movie? They had the
Yes.
waterproof compartments.
Yes, 4 of them.
Was it only 4?
Well, if they
It
could
could stay
handle it
afloat with 4,
4,
but not with
right,
5.
With not
Yeah.
with 5, right?
Yes. And so if they had just hit straight on, like the first one would have
Filled.
Fine.
but because they tried to turn and so they scraped the side of it, it like hit all the
It hit all of them.
yeah. So you think someone intentionally turned? I mean, I don't know. I just feel like
I just think they were.
the MO. I'm unclear on what the if someone said let's take out this boat, we're just gonna have it happen to hit a glacier in the middle of the night.
I also think a millionaire would have looked at that boat and thought, investment.
Yeah.
How many voyages can I get out of that boat?
Yeah.
How many poor people can I fit on the
Yeah.
bottom
All
layer?
that money you put in.
Like,
Also,
I don't think they would have sunk it.
also though, I did see that the binoculars
Uh-huh.
were locked up, and the person with the
Mm.
key to get the binoculars took the keys off of the.
Why were they locked up? It's just binoculars.
There's a bunch of lower class people on that
So
boat.
they didn't have binoculars, but
Would a binocular have made a difference? Tip of the ice?
no, I guess I'm just trying to think like a conspiracy theorist and be like,
Yeah.
okay, did they intentionally not give them that? But I'm still just not able to make this leap to like
No.
they
it's-
hit an iceberg and that was all planned.
It's too far of a leap.
I'm still not buying it.
I just think it's an interesting concept.
But you don't.
I don't really believe it, let's be honest. But however, interesting concept.
Uh-huh.
Interesting concept that these guys got
The
taken out.
Federal Reserve, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
If these people were like his financial rivals, could he not have just taken them out to?
Well,
Exactly.
he
Like,
was.
no, but I
the
mean
one
like,
man,
Exactly.
yeah.
no, but I mean like, why did it have to be about the
Also-
Federal Reserve? Maybe it was just like
You're
business,
telling-
but I don't believe any of this because I don't believe that they took out 1,500 people just
You're
funsies.
telling me he couldn't afford a hitman?
as
Like,
an alternative.
yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe
was
there was a
1912.
hitman on the boat and we'll never know. Hold on.
No.
That
Got
I
Colleen.
could believe.
Yeah. No, but Colleen makes a great point.
Right.
Instead of just like wrecking this brand new overpriced boat and killing 1,500 people, they're like in New York.
Yeah, why not?
Just get a mobster.
Why don't you just
But
call the
weren't they
mob?
not in New York at that point.
They were in
It's all
Europe.
England.
They were all in Europe.
But they're going back to America.
Yeah.
Right.
They're on their way to New York.
Right.
Why
Let
don't you
them
just
get to New York and let
call the
someone
mob
just
up?
pew pew. Yeah. Pew pew pew
Why
pew.
don't you just call
That's
Taylor
true.
up?
This is the mob. Mob was big at this time.
Guys, just a reminder, don't forget to check out our Facebook and Instagram pages at 3 Scheme Queens. That's the number 3 Scheme Queens, all one word. We're also on Reddit, same username. If you want to check out our website, go to 3schemequeens.com and you can find links to our social media accounts, our Buzzsprout page, all of our episodes, additional content, our contact page, and our discussion board where you can engage with us and share any updates on the topics that we have discussed. Let us know how we're doing and what you want to hear next. There are also opportunities to financially support us. There are links to buy us a cup of coffee, links to our recently updated merch store, and affiliate links. And as always, if you choose not to financially support us, we appreciate the follows, the downloads, listens, the likes. Kate, what should the people do?
Yeah, actually, I want you to take out your phone, text 3 people,
two of which are really loved Leo DiCaprio
Oh.
in the Titanic movie,
Handsome Leo.
and one finance bro. And share with them this podcast and let them just pull their
Rip us
hair out
apart.
about how we don't understand the Federal Reserve. And also, then scroll on down, leave us a 5-star review, leave us a comment, share us with your friends and family, share us on your Instagram, interact with us on Instagram and all your other social media platforms.
Okay, well, that was really interesting, Kate and Colleen. Thank
Yeah.
you for sharing, for revisiting Titanic finally.
Yeah. I mean, I just am bummed that none of these Titanic conspiracies are really panning out.
Are there
'cause
I really
wanna
thought they
believe
were.
them.
I would say I really thought there were gonna be some form of truth,
Yeah.
but
Are there any other Titanic conspiracy theories out there?
there's a conspiracy about the Titanic having something of a mummy's, like a mummy's object
Oh,
from
it was a
Egypt
curse?
and cursed the ship, thus
Oh, I like that
cursing
one.
anything to do with the ship.
Okay. I do
Um,
like that one.
But then if they found out that they couldn't confirm if any part of the mummy was actually on the ship, it was all just alleged. I don't know. That one felt like a stretch too. They all felt like a stretch.
Do you know what I did learn when I was trying to find a cocktail for
What?
today or something, a drink check? That when the ship went down, they were able to recover a bunch of the booze that was all crated up, and they had like real fancy
Good for
champs.
them.
And because it was so high quality, they were able to consume it after rescuing it from the bottom of the ocean.
Really? That
Good
is
for
super cool.
them.
So
That's great.
yeah,
That's actually really cool. They didn't implode.
Yeah, that's surprising.
maybe
it didn't
maybe they
implode.
were like would have been
Were they
would
floating?
have
They
been
might have been
floppy.
floating. Yeah,
Oh, maybe.
they were probably
yeah.
floating.
I don't know. Don't dig deep. I just know that I kept seeing that they were like, we were able to rescue booze and it was consumed because it was high quality.
I
so
would have
it
been
survived.
excited too.
Yeah, I bet it would be bobbing. You're probably right. It was buoyant.
Yeah, maybe when like the Carpathia showed up, they brought like the 700 plus people on, and then
Yeah.
they were like, and we'll just grab these
Booze.
crates that are floating. Yeah, and
I recognize
and
that box.
that'll warm you. A little bourbon to warm you
Or
up.
maybe maybe the people on the lifeboats were like,
I would've
Well,
been
there is
excited.
a guy who survived by just drinking whiskey, and he survived for rescue, but then people online were like, but like don't do that because that's not a
Doesn't-
good survival.
Doesn't
Yeah.
alcohol lower your core temperature?
I think that's what I'm saying. Doesn't want to like vasodilate you.
Yeah.
Because usually if we want to, you get cold, you vasoconstrict, and it gets all of the
oh,
the
yeah,
heat
yeah,
and blood is
yeah.
going to your
Yeah.
I'm right.
vital organs.
Yeah.
I'm right.
Colleen, you were right.
Thank you.
But by vasodilating, yeah, you're like
The
you're not
only
sending all that blood flow to
reason-
your heart and your organs.
The only reason why I know that is because I always get terrified of drinking in the winter. Like drinking outside in the winter. Because you never know how cold you are.
Well, I don't want to drink outside in the winter because I don't want to be outside hanging out, socializing in the winter.
But like in college, going to parties and walking home, I was always afraid I was going to get frostbite. Because you can't feel it.
This is such an anxious trio right here.
You
That
never,
thought has never crossed my mind that like,
you were never at a house party and it was like single digits.
well, first of all, I went to school in South Carolina, so no. But also,
Weak.
that I just feel like that would not have crossed my mind that like, oh, since it's
Oh.
cold now, I probably shouldn't
No,
drink.
Like I'm going to freeze
No,
to
every
death.
time I drank too much, I was like, I'm going to stop breathing.
No, I
This
was
is it.
always afraid of frostbite.
No, if anything, I'd be like, it's so cold, I want to warm up because that's
No,
what I
but
say.
you don't know you're cold.
No,
That's
like,
the
yeah,
whole
you get your
point.
beer
I
coat
get
on.
so
feel
hot.
hot.
I get
You
so
feel
hot, when I
but
drink.
you're actually not hot.
You get your beer coat on.
That's what I'm saying.
And that's what I try to do when I'm cold and I'm outside and there's
You
like
strip?
in like a social boozy scene. No, I would be like, yeah, I just need I need to warm up from the inside, you know?
Yeah, see, that's why I don't understand.
You when you drank in college, you worried about not breathing?
I have anxiety, Megan.
I worried about frostbite. Also, not realistic.
You did it.
Yeah, what? I know people who have frostbite or who have had frostbite. I'm like waiting for the bus to go to school too, not even drunk.
They got frostbite because of waiting. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Their toes?
Yeah, her toes in the snow.
Did she have holes in her shoes where her toes had
I'm
popped
sure
through?
she was not wearing appropriate shoes.
Yeah.
But also the bus was late. Kids never got frostbite in your school? We also had 3 separate kids get hit by a car. crossing the street to go to school.
Well, yeah, because we know everyone in Massachusetts is just drinking and
hits
driving.
people, yeah.
Drinking and driving.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll see you guys next Tuesday.
See you
Okay,
next Tuesday.